Russia has launched yet another missile assault on Kyiv as Ukraine struggles with a growing shortage of air defense interceptors. At a critical moment in the war, Moscow is intensifying pressure on Kyiv's already strained air defense network. Russian missiles have struck the Ukrainian capital for the third time in just 1 week, according to reports. Kyiv has once again come under ballistic missile attack as Russia launches a fresh wave of strikes. Russia launched another ballistic missile attack on Kyiv, marking the third strike on the Ukrainian capital within a week. Powerful explosions echoed across Kyiv on July 8 as air raid sirens sounded and Russian missiles targeted the city. Fires broke out in Kyiv's Desnyansky and Sviatoshinsky districts after missile impacts, according to the city's mayor. Officials said warehouses and several non-residential buildings suffered damage in the latest round of Russian strikes. Ukraine's Air Force warned of incoming ballistic missiles, sending residents rushing into shelters across the capital. The latest attack comes just days after one of Russia's deadliest barrages on Kyiv left at least 26 people dead. A day before the assault on Kyiv, Russia also struck the southern port city of Odessa, injuring at least 10 people. Ukraine responded by targeting Russia's Shadow Fleet, striking fuel tankers operating in the Sea of Azov. Kyiv said the targeted tankers were supplying fuel to Russian forces stationed in occupied Crimea, according to reports. The Russia-Ukraine war continues to escalate through long-range missile and drone attacks from both sides. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to face growing shortages of interceptor missiles needed to defend against Russian ballistic attacks. A devastating Russian attack hit the quiet Kyiv suburb of Vyshneve overnight on July 5 to 6, when a series of powerful blasts tore through residential areas, damaged critical infrastructure, and turned a normally peaceful neighborhood into a scene of wreckage and mourning as emergency teams scrambled to respond. On the morning of July 6, the government ordered evacuation of 600 residents over threat of detonations, instructing authorities to move people to safer locations because unexploded ordnance, unstable structures, or secondary strikes presented acute risks that made immediate relocation necessary for civilian safety. Details of the attack and eyewitness accounts were reported by the Kyiv Independent on July 6, with the outlet compiling survivors' testimonies, timelines of the explosions, and on-the-ground reports that together painted a grim picture of the strike's human and material toll. Residents of Vyshneve, located on Kyiv's western edge, described scenes of terror, people fleeing as buildings burned, children and the elderly being pulled from debris, and neighborhoods left in stunned silence punctuated by sirens and the shouts of rescuers as they searched for the wounded and missing.
My mother, 91 years old. She could not walk, she was using a walking frame. She called me, saying, "Sasha, everything is on fire." Everything was detonating. I was not allowed here. I was told to wait until it finished. I came, and this is what I saw. Most probably she inhaled the smoke and then died. Such a pity. 91. And of course she wanted to die of natural causes.
Multiple eyewitness accounts on the attack were cited by the Kyiv Independent. Diana Lyashchuk, a resident of Vyshneve, said, and I quote, "A huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Burning fragments kept flying behind us. They were so high, but it felt like everything was on fire. I called my mom just to tell her not to worry, that I was alive. Then another huge explosion happened. I was terrified she would hear me die over the phone." Unquote. Yevhenia Denisyuk, a resident of Vyshneve, said, and I quote, "It was terrifying. Everything just kept detonating. I'm a strong woman, so I managed, but many people were crying." Unquote. Kirilo Melnik, a resident of Vyshneve, said, and I quote, "The whole house started shaking. The walls were moving back and forth. There were several explosions before dawn. The house shook like a house of cards. They're still clearing the rubble. The barbershop where I always got my haircut burned down completely." Unquote. Kate Vishniak, another resident from Vyshneve, said, and I quote, "My house is gone. Everything burned. I just feel empty." Unquote. In Vyshneve, 7 people were killed and 29 injured as a result of Russia's latest attack, leaving families grieving, hospitals stretched, and emergency crews racing to treat the wounded and recover those still missing. A warehouse was damaged, resulting in secondary explosions, which compounded the destruction, spread fires across adjacent blocks, and increased the danger to both civilians and first responders working at the scene. Witnesses located on the other side of Vyshneve said the blasts felt overwhelming, describing a thunderous shockwave and sudden darkness that sent people scrambling into the streets and created a lasting atmosphere of fear and disorientation. Kyiv Governor Mykola Kalashnik said the attack damaged dozens of buildings, noting structural collapses, shattered windows, and widespread debris that will require extensive repairs and long-term assistance for displaced residents. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky described the situation in Vyshneve as serious, underscoring the human cost of the strikes and calling for urgent support from domestic agencies and international partners to address the aftermath. The attack on Vyshneve was part of a much larger overnight Russian bombardment, a coordinated campaign that struck multiple regions simultaneously and aimed to inflict widespread disruption across Ukraine's civilian and critical infrastructure. In the city of Kyiv, at least 19 people were killed and 90 others were injured amid the barrage, overwhelming emergency services and prompting city authorities to expand medical and sheltering resources to cope with the mounting casualties. Ukraine's Air Force said Russia launched an attack involving 23 ballistic missiles, a declaration that highlights the scale and mix of strike systems used to target distant urban and strategic sites across the country. Ukraine said Russia launched 39 cruise missiles and 6 hypersonic Zircon anti-ship missiles, a combination that demonstrates a complex, multi-vector strike profile intended to saturate defenses and challenge interception capabilities. Some 351 attack and decoy drones were also launched at Ukraine overnight, according to reports, adding massed low-cost threats that forced air defense systems to spread coverage and complicated efforts to protect civilian areas. The attack also damaged facilities operated by Ukraine's largest private energy company, exacerbating power outages, disrupting services for millions, and complicating recovery efforts as technicians work to restore critical electricity infrastructure. Russia said its long-range missiles struck a suburb of Kyiv during another wave of overnight attacks on Ukrainian targets. A former Ukrainian MP claimed the strike hit a depot allegedly storing depleted uranium munitions. Former lawmaker Aya Mosiachuk said the depot was located in Vyshneve, close to densely populated residential areas. Videos circulating from the area showed powerful secondary explosions following the reported missile impact. Mosiachuk accused the Ukrainian authorities of remaining silent about what he claimed was stored inside the depot. Composition: made using dense uranium left over after the uranium enrichment process. Purpose: designed to penetrate heavily armored military vehicles and fortified targets. Controversy: remains controversial because of its toxicity and low-level radioactivity. Health risks: the main risk arises if depleted uranium dust is inhaled or ingested. Ukraine: the United States supplied depleted uranium ammunition to Ukraine in 2023. The former MP said residents were advised to stay indoors and keep their windows closed after the strike.